Okay, you should
I
see a
was
little.
just going to remind you about that.
Thank you. I probably will need the reminder later on, I'm sure. You should see a little blurb saying the meeting's being recorded. I'm going to shut the email. Okay. Jennifer Williams of the Normal Public Library is our database committee chair, so I will let her get the meeting started.
Thanks, Erica. Good morning. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay. All right, let's see. So I printed it and then lost it and then found it. So I have it now. So there's a lot on the list today, but we'll get started with some introductions. If anyone wants to share in the Zoom chat what you're most looking forward to this summer. I was trying to think if I had anything to look forward to this summer, and I have a couple weddings in June that I'm excited to go to and see people and do something fun. So that's all I've got so far.
I'm with you, Lori, getting outside. Yeah, I would like to go outside and not have to wear a coat. That's been nice these past couple weeks. Yeah, okay. Yay for vacation. Oh, Sancody Lakes. I'd like to go there too. Haven't been. Yeah, okay. Well, if you think of anything else, keep typing. If you'd like, Jennifer, I thought you could go over this housekeeping slide. I'm trying to do better about meeting etiquette, so I'll let you take it away with this slide.
Sounds good. All right, so it looks like please make sure to keep your microphone muted. You should be muted. You should have been automatically muted when you join the meeting. Video is encouraged but optional, even if you have a big mess behind you like this. That's my big project for this summer. I need to clean this office. If you have any questions, please put those in the chat window. If you prefer your question to ask your question anonymously, just send it to the chat monitor, Erin Roberts. Type private followed by your question. If you send it directly to her, and then she'll read it aloud, but not include your name. If you prefer to ask your question verbally, just unmute and ask to chime in. To turn on closed captioning, which I recommend. I love the closed captioning. It works really well. Click the live transcript button on the Zoom toolbar at the bottom and click show subtitle. This option may also be in the more menu on the Zoom toolbar if you can't see it. And this meeting will be recorded, notes will be taken, and these slides will be available. Watch the RSA listserv for an announcement when that's all available.
Excellent, thank you. Before we have Tony dive in with an RSA support site update, I thought I'd mention that we do have, as usual, on the rsanfp.com support site, we do have from the left-hand menu RSA board committees groups. And then the next left-hand menu, database committee. We went ahead and put the agenda here, so we'll keep this open in the background. Okay, I think we're ready to push forward.
Okay, can you all hear me all right?
Yes.
Okay, great. I'm going to do a quick screen share and give you all an update on the new support site that I've been working on. So let me get that started here. And let's see, it'll stop your screen sharing, Erica. I think that's to be expected here. Okay.
Yeah, that's okay. I think I have it set up so you can start sharing, but let me know if not.
I think it's working. I'm just choosing the right window here. Okay, so as I turn over here to look at it. Okay, so I've been hard at work looking at the support site's content now that we've kind of pinned down more of a structure that will change less and less every time you see it now. You know, Kendall and I most recently, after hearing a second round of staff feedback, Kendall and I did kind of a final look through of all these menus and the organization of everything. I'll give you an overview of the project outline and what I've been working on. But first, because we're on the website, I'll give you a quick tour again for those of you that haven't made it to every meeting. So a quick tour of the site. You have all of your requests right here, including cataloging requests, help desk tickets, etc. And we've tried to condense these options down. In addition to this front page trying to be a little less cluttered, what we're trying to do is like a relevant news post up top here. And in addition, we even have quick links. If you just scroll down just a bit, that's where you find the, if you are working remotely and need an IP address, for example, that's a tech support quick link right here. So I'm not going to go through this whole homepage because it's still kind of a work in progress, but suffice to say, there's a lot of like the miscellaneous things you're used to having at your fingertips at the start of browsing the website will also be found here, just kind of below the initial splash screen. It's possible this design will change depending on user testing and feedback, but we haven't really started testing with the membership yet, which that'll be the goal to begin that at the next website committee meeting. So the RSA handbooks are one way to access information about anything you need within about RSA. So these are kind of like the encyclopedias or the handbooks of what RSA does and all of the things that you can do in RSA. As I'm clicking through here, I also want to highlight, we also have a lot of these little bits of information like policy about billing or the fine block limit policy. Those are also, you're able to sort through those based on topic as well. But if as a general rule of thumb, the way that this site and many of the pages within are organized is there's kind of a table of contents on the left that is it's generated by all of the headings below the main heading. So you can see if I wanted to go straight to patron accounts and start browsing around, I can click on this table of contents on the left, it will jump me down to the patron accounts section. And then I can see at my fingertips, I have like cheat sheets and guides all laid out here. I can click in there and begin, I could download that cheat sheet right away. That will just download and open a PDF for me. So I may be going a little fast, but that's kind of because I think that this, though this is like the overview of how we kind of see the site working, some aspects of this still might change. So for example, after talking with Kendall, we were looking at so this display user wizard, for example, once you go in here, you're greeted with another page, but you're not given any of the information yet. That might change. We might actually put some of the information right on this page. We don't know yet. It'll be a little bit of extra work, but if you could just at a glance read it without having to download another file and click another thing, that might be really helpful. And you all, the membership, might really want that. So like I said, this is one way to access all the information, and the content load is most complete on member services content. So anything relating to circulation and billing. So I realize it's not really, we do have a rough draft of the cataloging handbook in here, but I'd rather not show that off yet because it's in a state of, in progress, and it's like a pardon our desk kind of thing. If I do go, however, into, all topics, you'll be able to start beginning to see that I can sort through some of all of those circulation topics are also broken down into, for example, like holds. They might be categorized, they're using the categories within this WordPress website to give them each an individual identity. So if something is about holds and ILL, you'll be able to see it right away by clicking either holds or ILL in this all topics page. So this is I'm hoping this will also be a handy tool for those service staff that are working and time is of the essence and you really need to get to the file or the how-to guide quickly. You'll be able to go in and see at a glance. So right now, cataloging content is more grouped together than circulation content is, because circulation has these other categories. But this is something we'll be working on as we load the content. If it's useful to have everything together like this, like right now, helpful info for cataloging requests, is you can find it right here. by topic, and you can find it by just going to the cataloging topic screen, which has all the same content. And there's multiple ways to get to it. So this page, I'm not exactly sure how finished it is, but I'll click into it anyway. Yeah, so this page has a combination of all of the helpful info that you would need. And it's so far this is all chunked together, and you would also be able to find it by clicking on cataloging request, and it would be like a link at the top of that as well. So that's this page right here would get you there. So again, you'll see things like this related content tab kind of index on the right, and this should for most pages labeled or categorized as cataloging should have easy access to jump between cataloging pages. So you're not you're never too far down too many levels that you can't find where you are. It should be easy to get back out to the training page or the database committee page, etc. I have been recently working on the committee pages, so this doesn't look too different than the one that's on the current site that Erica briefly showed while she was loading up the agenda. So the idea here would be like, if you wanted to get the agenda, you could get many ways to get to this database committee page, but if it's an event going on, it would be in committees, you could just click on database committee and get here as well. I realize you guys have a jam-packed meeting, so my tour is almost over. I just wanted to give you the overview of the other things. But yeah, this page functions very similar to the others. If I wanted to get to agendas, I would click here, download the agenda. So again, hopefully there's more white space, easier to navigate, easier to know where you're going. So very briefly, this is the roadmap I've been kind of working by, and it does change and update. But the site content load is ongoing. It's time consuming, but it's very worthwhile. I'm getting rid of a lot of, I'm refining it, I guess, is a way, just how like when you're doing any kind of a writing project, there's a lot of like cutting away the stuff you don't need. And so in designing the site, there was things that I didn't need that I put in there. And now I'm trying to pare that all back, get it into working shape, and get all the content that's on the current site on here, making sure that the letterheads are good, and the URLs on the documents are good and everything like that. So it's a time-consuming process, but I'm really seeing the light at the end of the tunnel, and we'll begin user testing at the end of June 21st will be this committee's next meeting. And you can register for the website committee meeting if you're interested, or if you want to send staff to it. That should be a good one. I will be talking about user testing and getting some of the membership on board, but you'll hear about it through the listserv as well. And I think that's about all I have to share. I can I'll get back to the rest of everything. But if you do have any questions, I'm here and available, and you can always ask me in chat as well.
Thank you, Tony. I'm excited about that new database committee page because it'll have those quick links on the left, so you won't have to scroll down a huge long page to find what you're looking for. So that'll be great to have those links over there. Yeah, it's looking good. Does anyone have any questions for Tony? Okay, thank you, Tony.
You're welcome. Happy to share.
Let me see here. Let me get my screen back. Okay. Dr. Pamela Thomas is on vacation this week, so she's unable to join us. So we will have Erin Roberts here at RSA deliver the CMC update.
Okay. The CMC update is we are finalizing our fiscal year 2023 online with the CMC webinars, and we'll be adding them to L2 soon. We are adding a new Moodle course for fiscal year 2023, cataloging basics. With Eric McKinney will be teaching this course, which will be offered September 26th to November 4th. 2022. The other Moodle courses are taught by Pam. They are cataloging 3D objects, kits, and realia, July 11th to August 5th of this year. Subject and analysis, August 8th to September 16th of this year. RDA book training, January 16th to March 10th of 2023. And RDA video and audio recordings training, May 8th to June 23rd, 2023. Our new U of I intern, Emily Daring, started with the CMC on May 4th. Just as a reminder, the CMC catalogs local authors, local history, local genealogy, and special collections, which can include a collection of foreign language materials, kits, postcards, etc. for free. We also transcribe written and audio recordings of digitized collections. We can consult with you about your metadata projects as well. We will be starting on a new special collections cataloging project of blueprints for the Abraham Lincoln Presidential Library and Museum. If you are attending the ILA conference in October, please stop by the CMC booth. Eric McKinney and Dr. Pamela Thomas will be co-presenting at ILA, exposing the heart of your library collections with the CMC. So please attend our session if you are at ILA. And the 2023 Moodle course schedule is the cataloging 3D objects, kits, and realia, July 11th to August 5th of 2022. You could register for that under cataloging 3D objects, kits, and realia. Subject analysis, August 8th through September 16th of 2022. Cataloging basics is September 26th to November 4th, 2022. RDA book training is January 16th to March 10th of 2023. Oops. RDA video and audio recording training is May 8th to June 23rd of 2023. And if you have questions, please contact Dr. Pamela Thomas, the CMC Bibliographic Grant Manager. It's all on the screen.
We know there were a lot of dates with those upcoming courses. So luckily they're all on the Library Learning, the L2 calendar. So if you thought, wait a minute, there were a lot of dates mentioned just now, check L2. They should all be on there. Yeah, okay, thank you, Erin. Okay, Nancy had a conflict this morning, so she unfortunately is unable to join us. So we're going to have Rhonda give Nancy's update.
Good morning, everyone. Rails wants to help you with cataloging materials in world languages through our World Language Cataloging Services program. Our statewide program provides original and copy cataloging for materials in world languages that are considered part of a library's regular collection, as opposed to being a special collection. Each library makes that determination. Libraries can send us physical items, photocopies, or PDF files of the items to be cataloged. Use the cataloging request form to submit requests. This form indicates the cataloging specifications for each item. Libraries can find all of the guidelines and procedures on how to request this service on the Rails website. For additional assistance, contact Nancy, and you can see her contact information on the screen, but now I'm going to share what the website looks like. If I can figure out how to share, there we go. There we go. On the Rails website, if you go under the services menu, you can see that it has world language cataloging underneath cataloging support. And that's this site right here. And it gives more information about what's eligible and what's not. And I will give the screen share back to you, Erica.
Excellent. Thank you.
Also, Nancy said that Rails is planning to have a cataloging training session in July with an outside presenter. We proposed some dates, but we haven't heard anything yet. She'll follow up again with them and see if she can get things moving along. And she'll post it to the listserv when it's ready. In September, we will offer a training course on cataloging video recordings, and the full course is in 3 separate sessions via Zoom. It'll probably be listed, or there'll be a reminder sent to the listserv, and it'll be on L2. If anyone has any questions, please contact Nancy George, Rails Cataloging Services Coordinator. And as you can see, all the information is on the screen to contact her. And that's all I have.
Thank you, Rhonda.
You're welcome.
Bear with me. I'm going to try to do a poll to make our meetings a little bit more interactive. Okay, here we go. It's been a little bit since I've done this. Make sure I pick the right one. Okay, do you hopefully see a poll on your screen that asks if you've submitted anything? We're just curious. This is anonymous too, so it's okay if you didn't. We're not going to hunt you down. Oh, good. It looks like we're split. That's pretty good. There might be a little bit more that have. Yeah. Okay. Well, keep submitting because remember they're eager to help you, whether it's special collections or foreign language. Okay. I think I'll end the poll. Share the results. Yeah. So we've a smidge more. We've used the services than not. Okay. Great. All right. Close that for now. Okay, I think our next topic is Lisa, so take it away, Lisa.
So I'm going to talk about 2 new guides that are now available on the RSA staff support site. So I'm going to share my screen so I can show you where to find them and what these guides look like. Okay, so like I said, both of these guides can be found on the library staff support site, which you can find at rsanfp.org. Once you get that in, I highly recommend bookmarking it so you don't have to worry about typing in all those letters to get to the correct website. But once you are here, both of these can be found in the same location. So you want to go to the workflows, documentation, and training link over here. And I'm sorry if you hear my cat meowing. She says hi. So once you're here, you want to go to cataloging. And then under cataloging, both of these are going to be under guides and how-tos. And since these are new, they're both up at the top. As time progresses, if we are still using the old site, depending on how long it takes for the new one to get up here, as they migrate further along on the page, you can hit Control F on your keyboard to do a search. You can type in like a keyword for something like audio enabled, and it'll take you directly to where that document is on this page. So the first one I want to talk about is the guide for audio enabled books, and these include Wonderbooks and Box. Hold up. So I'm just going to kind of give you a little outline about what this document talks about and some like things to highlight on this. So with the audio enabled books guide, the top of the page will kind of tell you what an audio enabled book is. And for those unfamiliar with Wonderbooks or Boxes, basically publishers like Playaway, they took something like a hardcover book that was previously published by somebody else. They bought it and they like affixed an MP3 player onto the cover of the book. So people could, you know, play an audio recording of the story while they read along with the book. So they're kind of nifty. But this will explain like what an audio enabled book is. Further down, it'll talk about match points. So you might be wondering, like, well, I don't buy audio-enabled books or Vox. Like, why do I need to care? The reason you should is that on these records for audio-enabled books, the ISBN for the original just volume without the MP3 recording attached to it is included on the record. So you might just be cataloging a regular book and see one of these records pop up because that ISBN is on the record. And this will talk about how usually those ISBNs are marked with a type C in front of it, so it'll be marked as like invalid. It's not always the case, but it usually is. But you just might see an increase of these as more libraries add Wonderbooks or Vox to the system. And as you look further in the document, it goes through match points, and we pulled these from our cataloging checklist that we use. So there's some description about how you might see the ISBNs listed in the 020 field. Here's an example of like, the type C saying it's invalid, and then the Wonderbook ISBN. You might also see a 250 field for an addition statement specifying whether the item is Vox or a Wonderbook. In the publication information, the 264 page field, you're not going to see the publisher that's on the title page because that's for the original book. You're going to see whoever created the audio-enabled book, such as like Find a Way for Wonderbooks or Library Ideas for Vox. 300 feels a little different. You might see them listed as either one audio-enabled book, or you might actually see just one Wonderbook or one Vox. So either one is fine. We at RSA, we prefer this audio-enabled book, so that's how we'll create a 300 field, but either is okay, but just something to look for when you're cataloging these items. In the 33X fields, you're going to see a combination of terms that describe both the audio and physical nature of the item. And because there is an audio component, you will see a 34X field most likely on these records describing that MP3 feature. These types of items also have specific 500 field notes that you're going to see. So you might see notes about the original publication history, about the physical book, information about the audio book, like the audio content itself, where the publication date and narrator name was taken, because that's not on these items. We have to get them from a publisher website. You might also see specific 500 notes that are just for Wonderbooks or just for Vox, talking about like, where the headphone jack is, or how they made this, or what kind of batteries, go with these items. Just things that are specific to each audio-enabled book type. Another match point to look at would be, and you're not going to see this possibly on the item, but you might find information about the narrator, just kind of helpful to know. Just one more thing to point out, that this is a little bit different than just a regular, hardback or paperback book. And then the last match point that'll show, like, again, that hybrid nature of it being both a physical book and an audio book are these genre terms that kind of mix, blend that together, reflect the nature of what a Wonderbook or Vox is. Later in the document, there's a little section about parameter considerations to keep in mind. So there are some, different terms that are required and are specified here. There are some parameters that you can use that are optional. The thing to note, though, is that if you are new to adding Wonderbooks or Vox or any other type of audio-enabled book to your collection, the new item format often means there's new parameters to consider. So if you have any questions about parameters and need to get some codes added to your drop-down menu, do contact the help desk, and Rhonda, who is our master at parameters, she will walk you through all that and help you get that set up for you. And then the very last section is how to submit a cataloging request for an audio-enabled book. So this kind of walks through the steps of, like, and links out to where you can find the cataloging request form for the audio-enabled book, and some things that we might need about the item. But that might be a little updated soon, and Erica will tell you more about that. But for now, this is like a good section to look at for the time being. The other document I wanted to talk about is called What is the Title Page Verso? It's basically a parts of the book guide. So I thought of creating this document a while back because, you know, you can either use this as a refresher, or if you're brand new to cataloging, thank you for admitting, Carla, whoever did. Thank you and welcome, Carla. So yeah, I created this guide to kind of describe the different terminology that you might hear or find when we're talking about books. Because there's different words we use to describe the parts of a book that I don't really feel are common knowledge. It's not, no one's telling their friends like, yeah, I bought this book. Like, you know, look to the verso page. You can find all this information about this item. No one says that aside from catalogers because we're weird. You know, and every profession has their own jargon. So I felt like something like this might be helpful. So, you know, if you're new to this, you could be like, okay, I now know what they're talking about. So, you know, this guide will kind of, there's lots of pictures to kind of show you, you know, how different things might look. But through the guide, it'll tell you like what the different term is and give some examples of it and talk about like what sort of information you can find on that, you know, specific part of the book, and also like where to find preferred sources of information. Because yes, like I can look at the cover of an item and, you know, it'll have the title and the author, but that's not the preferred source. Like when we create a record and you're looking at the 245 field of the bibliographic record, that's transcribed from the title page. So it's a good place to look for information and verify things, but yeah, this will walk you through like what the preferred sources are and where to look for specific information first. So some things covered here, we have the front cover, you know, and you can find different pieces of information here, like the title, author. You might find series information. You might find information about bonus content or an author forward that might not be listed anywhere else. So there's stuff you might find that'll pop up in various places on a record. This talks about the spine. Again, has the title and author, but what I find the most helpful is often this might be the only place where the number the book is in like of a series. Like this might be the only place that's listed on the book, like the numbering of it in the series. So very helpful. The back cover, that one, you know, that's a pretty common term, but you know, there's a lot of different sorts of information you might find on the back cover, and not all back covers are created equally. Like this one on the left has next to no information, whereas this one on the right, we have like a summary statement, which could be helpful when, you know, comparing our item to a record. We have information about the series it belongs to, possibly we have, you know, bonus content, the publisher listed. So it's, you know, a lot of both like good information you might find within like the note fields of a record. On the inside of the book is when all those weird terms that we use to describe things begin to pop up. So the title page, like this section describes like where you can find the title page, how we use it to transcribe information in the 245 field, and just list some information you might find there and some examples. So like you're going to find the title, you're going to find the author. Usually you'll find the publisher, which is, again, this is where we transcribe the publisher information. You might see a series statement. And then like sometimes there's a little mention here. I'm really sorry about my cat, everybody. But there's a little mention here too that like, you know, sometimes publishers try to trick people and they'll put like a page in front of the title page that just lists just the title. Unless that's literally the only page in the book that has the title listed, you can usually ignore that page.
Excuse me, Lisa, and
Mhm.
Carla mentioned that for manga or any other materials that read right to left, is the ISBN displaying cover considered the back cover, even if the position is what we would normally consider to be the front cover?
Let me read that.
Yeah,
It's a
it's
copy. Here, let me read this. So for manga. I mean, if I were talking about a manga to somebody, I would probably, even though it's like structurally the like front page, I think for just talking about it in context with people, I would probably consider what even though it's like on the front. I would probably just call it like the back cover because it has the content you would normally find on the back cover. I don't know. I don't know if there's like a specific way to phrase that. Talking about mangas doesn't really come up that much in really any webinar or anything I've ever, even just comics in general, but mangas especially, they just don't really come up ever. So as long as you just provide images, like if you provide images for a request or if we need information, just provide content of both what's on, you know, both ends of the book, both covers, that should be sufficient. Because you don't really have to label it, we just need to see both of it, if that makes sense. So, okay. Let's see, so this section has information about the title page verso and what sorts of things you might find there. So this is kind of like the catch-all page where publishers will just put everything there. So you're gonna have copyright dates, you might have a publication date, there's detailed publisher information, publication history, edition statements. The verso page is where you're gonna find the preferred source of the ISBN. Yeah. So that's all fun. So this just kind of, and this will give you examples of like, you know, what the verso page might look like, because it could vary wildly between different publishers. So like most verso pages are kind of going to have like all this information like you see here. This is a very detailed verso page, and this kind of represents, I think, what you see most of the time. But not all versos are the same. Like with mangas, I think mangas kind of look like a combination of the title page mixed with the verso information. So you have like, you know, all that publication information, but you also have all this list of translators and the title and series statements and volume numbers, and it's kind of a hodgepodge of things. And then some versos have very little information. Like this one, it's just the copyright date and the publisher. And then some have even less. Like this is literally just the copyright date and that's it. So you might see like something like these, especially with like very small publishers or self-published items. So if all you have is just a copyright date someplace, like we need that because we'll use this as the implied publication date. And in this case, probably the implied publisher, if there's no other publisher information. This section talks about final number page. I did link out, I like exception this, and I linked out to the pagination considerations and cataloging guide because it's way more detailed and far better at describing final number page. I highly recommend, you know, looking at this guide. But essentially, like, start at the back of the book, gradually flip your way forward until you find the last numbered page. There might be several final numbered pages because we want, whenever pagination, if it starts and restops, we want every time it stops. So like I put an example here, you might see 3 different quote unquote final numbered pages. It could get complicated. So I highly recommend this guide because Jane, who used to work here, she created a fabulous guide. Highly recommend. There's some examples of what final numbered page might look like. I did include a manga example because mangas can be very, very tricky. You know, sometimes they're, you know, legitimately not numbered, but if there is numbering in a manga, it might only be 5 pages that are numbered. So if you're dealing with a manga, I very much recommend flipping through it a couple times. If you find something, if you find a page that's numbered, start at the back, which will be like structurally the front of the book, and start flipping your way towards the start of the story. You might have to flip like 30 pages before you get to the final numbered page, but it might be there. So they're tricky. And then the last thing is, I'm calling it a manufacturing page. I don't know if this has a specific term, but this page is popping up a lot with self-published works, especially. And it's just like a blank page that just has this like barcode thing at the bottom, and then like some information about where the book was made and like the date it was printed. Because it's just manufacturing information, we don't actually use this in cataloging. We're never going to use this date as an implied publication date because it more resembles like a print date, which we don't use most of the time, 99.9% of the time. So if you've been like including this with images, just save yourself some energy. And you don't need to submit an image of this page during the submission process because we're not going to use it. So just want to save everybody a step. So those are the basics of the parts of the book. Does anybody have any questions about either of these guides? Okay, then I relinquish my screen and I pass this to Rhonda.
Thank you, Lisa. Let me get my screen back up. Okay, there we go. Take it away, Rhonda. Uh-oh, I cannot hear Rhonda.
There we go. I'm just going to go over a few of the new cataloging parameters that have been created. As you can see, we had one new home location created. It's read along for read along books. We had several new item category 5s added. As you can see those on the screen, some of them are animals exotic, career, holiday Islam, and some various award winners. So do we have any others? All right. None of the other codes, parameter codes were created since the last database committee meeting. Please keep in mind that if you would like any of these added to your drop downs, to please send an email to the RSA help desk and I will get them added to your drop downs as soon as possible. I think that's all.
Any questions for Rhonda? Nope. Okay.
Thanks, everyone.
We're ready for you, Erin.
Okay, the upcoming RSA cataloging events, we have basic cataloging, basic workflows cataloging workshops. It's all by Zoom. In June, it's the 28th, 29th, and 30th from 1:30 to 4 daily. You can, and there's the registration link right there. The RSA Biblo workshop done by Erica will be on Wednesday, June 15th from 9:30 to noon, and can register through L2. And the RSA cataloging office hours, which is Zoom, is on Thursday, June 9th from 10 to 11. That'll be Rhonda and I. And there's no registration. It's just pop in, pop out, ask questions, sit for the whole time. It doesn't matter. If you have any questions, that's a good time to come in and talk to us and see if we can help you or anybody that's on there can help you. And we
Thank
should
you,
be
Erin.
having some more come up in more workshops will be added to L2 and the listserv in August through December. So keep an eye out for those.
We'll get some more scheduled. That's really not that far away if you think about it. We're almost halfway through May, so we'll get some more scheduled. Does anyone have any questions for Erin? It's kind of a sparse list, I know, because over the summer we don't typically do quite as much. We'll take July off and then we'll get started again in August. Okay. I wanted to just talk to you about a couple enhancements that have come up since we last met in January. The first one, we're going to be configuring in the global item modification wizard. We're going to be configuring the ability to change the price. So if you scan in item IDs for multiple items. Let's say you have a stack of books that lack a price, and rather than assign an individual price to each one, you decided they'll all just be $20, for example. You can change this to $20 and start scanning in your books. And that sometimes beats doing them one by one, especially if you want them all to have the same price. So this we need to configure in the back end of workflows. So look for a listserv post once it's ready. We have several places we need to edit in the back end of workflows because there are several profiles that control this setting. So to be continued on that, but a member asked about that, so I wanted to be sure and mention it during this meeting. And just a refresher of where you find the global item modification wizard. You're logged into workflows either with your tech account or your individual cataloger account. You're in the cataloging module, and then you open up the call numbers and items group on the left. And then you have global item modification, that one right there. I've got it turned on manually, but like I said, we'll get that set up so that you see it there automatically. Any questions about that? Okay, the second enhancement I wanted to mention, this is happening on OCLC's end. OCLC is starting to add foreign language subject headings to records that are otherwise in English. So OCLC announced back in March, they're enriching records with headings mapped across authority files, such as from the French Canadian repertoire, and they're putting those into the English language authority file. So they're trying to help users find what they're looking for more easily, even if they're not searching in English. So they're showing here how a record maybe before this enrichment would have just had this chemistry subject heading in English, but after the enrichment, they've started putting in the foreign language equivalents, starting with the French Canadian one. Again, trying to make it more accessible for searching than just English. We are going to keep these headings on the records because we too want to try to increase searchability of our records. So please don't delete these foreign language headings from the OCLC records as you're bringing them in from into workflows from Connexion. Any questions about that? You might have seen some OCLC records already that have some subject headings, foreign language ones on them. I know Peoria Public reached out, I think it was back in March or April. So thank you for Peoria noticing and saying, wait a minute, what's going on here? Okay. Okay, I wanted to mention a couple things about pirated or counterfeit DVDs. This first one, thank you, Carla McComb. We've come across a couple movies in the database that look like they were almost videotaped off of someone's TV screen. So these Loving the Classics, I admit RSA initially cataloged them because they are from a publisher, Loving the Classics, and they are public domain works for the most part that are older, which means copyright isn't as strict as it is for more recent items. We didn't actually screen them though, and upon looking at some scans that were shared with us, again, it looks like it was taped off of somebody's TV screen. So we're going to work with the libraries that have put these in. We'll work with explaining next steps for moving them, but we certainly appreciate, thanks Carla for telling us, because again, they looked legitimate to us just based off of the information that was given to us initially. We also have heard, I think maybe from Fond du Lac Library, if you were attending the users group earlier this month, that they've started to see some streaming television series, for example, maybe on Netflix or Disney Plus. I think Ozark and The Mandalorian were mentioned, but these haven't been released on DVD. So if you're getting DVDs for these, please don't catalog them because those again are not legitimate. We do have a procedure if you think you've encountered either an advanced reader copy or a pirated item. I thought I'd show you how to get to that. Let me move this over. Okay, so I'm on the home page, rsanfp.com or rsanfp.org, either one. And then if I go to the workflows, documentation, and training on the left, and I go to cataloging, and then I go to, I think it might be a cheat sheet. Let's double check here. Yeah, okay. So towards the top of the page, here it is, what to do if you encounter one of these. So we tried to keep it as succinct as possible, split into 2 sections. So if the item belongs to you versus if it belongs to another library. So just keep this in mind in case you get something, especially for a hold and your patron mentions it looks a little bit fishy. Just keep this in mind and reach out to us if in doubt. Any questions about that? Okay. Why don't we cover the OCLC section? This is kind of a quick hitter section. It shouldn't be too bad. And then we'll take our 5-minute break around 10:30 or so. So we'll push ahead. Okay, these next couple slides may look familiar. I admit I recycled them from the last meeting because the information's still relevant. We've talked about this at least once, maybe twice now. Remember OCLC released the Connexion Client 3.0 cataloging software. They released that back in August last year. The procedures that you use in the client to search for records, put the 949 tag on, export them, load them into workflows, all of that stays the same, but they just did some updating to the software itself. Your constant data tags should move over the 949 tags, but it's still a good idea to create a backup, just copy pasting them into like a Word or a Notepad document so you've got them in case they don't move over. If you use the Connexion browser, which is accessed through your internet browser like Firefox or Edge, Chrome, if you use that browser, you don't need to update anything since it's through the browser itself. Okay, I put the link where to download the 3.0 in case you don't have it. I recommend going ahead and updating it. OCLC does not have an end of life date yet though. For the previous version, the 2.63. When they released 3.0 last August, they mentioned they were going to sunset 2.63 at some point during calendar year 2022. I know we're only in the 5th month of 2022, so there's time, but I do expect in the next few months, they'll probably announce a date for that where it won't be supported anymore. We'll keep you informed on the listserv once we know about an end of life date for 2.63. And remember, if you need help with the 3.0 download, OCLC is the best one to help you. They know all the tricks that I do not know to get it installed. We actually have our IT department help us with it. So I admit I'm not the best one to help you. So I put the OCLC support information on there. And then also too, OCLC can help you if you don't remember your authorization or your password. Sometimes that comes up too, especially if staff changes. Or maybe you had it written down and that piece of paper gets misplaced. So OCLC can help you with that too. Does anyone have any questions about the Connexion client, even though it's really the same information we've been talking about? Okay. The next thing I wanted to talk about, and this we've talked about a couple times too, but it's coming up next week. So next week, we're going to be doing our free OCLC holdings reset. was it earlier this year? Your library might have received either from OCLC or the state library. You might have received an announcement about this free holdings reset. We've worked together with the other Illinois shared catalogs and OCLC to come up with a timeline for us doing it. So our week is next week. Why are we doing it? Remember, it's free. So there's no cost to participate. And then we're hoping that it's going to improve the accuracy of the WorldCat holdings so that you hopefully get less WorldShare interlibrary loan requests for items that you no longer own. Remember, we do update your holdings monthly through our OCLC holding manager, our own process. But my understanding is this reset may go even further and try to clean up holdings. So let's see what happens. I'm hopeful though it'll improve the WorldShare holdings because I know some of you get requests periodically for items that you no longer have, yet OCLC shows holdings still available. So what does OCLC do when they do this process? They'll first create a backup if your library has created any what's called local holding records. These are most likely for periodicals. You might remember several years ago, I used to provide training on making these local holding records. They indicate how long you own a periodical. So if you were to interlibrary loan it, the possible borrower knows the scope of your coverage. So for example, a common local holding record for periodical is retains current year only, since you don't keep a bunch of, you might keep a bunch of back issues, but I remember when I taught it, typically members were keeping maybe just a year or so of magazines, like their time, their people, that kind of thing. So if you've made any of those in OCLC, they're going to make a backup of those. And then they'll remove all of the holdings for our members that are currently set in WorldCat. And that includes the local holding records, because remember, they made a backup of those. So they're starting with a fresh slate. And then we've sent them earlier this week, we sent a fresh export of our bibliographic, our MARC records from workflows. And they'll use that file with those records, with those OCLC control numbers on them. They'll use those to set the WorldCat holdings. The process is supposed to just take a day or two. I know Swan and Prairie Cat, theirs was done in about a day. And their Swan's bigger than we are, Prairie Cat's comparable. So I'm hopeful it won't take too long on our end. And then once the reset's finished, OCLC will put back, restore those local holding records for the periodicals that they had taken off to do the reset. So you might be wondering, what should I stop doing during the holdings update? Let's have you pause if you do those local holding records, most likely for periodicals. Remember, retains current year only, retains current year +1, that kind of thing. Let's have you, if you do those, let's have you pause those next week while we do this, just so that we don't have anything that slips through the cracks as OCLC is backing these up and then removing them and then restoring them. Does anybody maintain these periodical local holdings records that you can think of? At one point, I know Peoria and Galesburg, I know at one point were, but I know that this isn't done so much anymore because you don't keep a lot of paper copies of magazines, and then nobody really interlibrary loans them. And there's limited shelf space too at your library for keeping all of these back issues that you would represent in a holding statement. So I'm just not sure how many of you have actually been doing them. But if you have, please pause. This will also go out on the listserv as well. You can continue doing WorldShare interlibrary loan requests, and you can continue cataloging both in workflows and OCLC Connection. Those two things should be okay because remember, we'll continue updating your holdings monthly using our regular process. We're going to take June off from doing that regular monthly process, OCLC Holdings Manager, because I'd like to spend some time looking at the results of the holding reset and possibly doing some cleanup. I'm not really sure how it'll shake out, so I'm interested to see OCLC's providing reports that indicate how the process went and if there's errors. So I'm just curious how this is going to play out for us. So we won't do any regular updates in June, but we'll start again in early July. And of course, we'll keep you informed on the listserv as this progresses. But like I said, I'm hopeful it will be done next week as we've talked about in the past. Any questions about that? Okay, why don't we go ahead and take our 5-minute break? I've got 10:31.
Go ahead and pause the recording.
Oh, thanks, Rhonda. See, I've already forgot. We will reconvene at 10:36 and I'll get a timer up. But until then, enjoy your break. Resume. All right. Okay. Our next topic, I thought I would summarize. Remember, we had an in-between database committee meeting earlier this month. Kendall talked about the new materials item type project. So I thought I'd fill you in on the latest developments. So the first step of the standardized new materials item types, we did the first step, which was getting them approved during the May 10th RSA board and users group meetings. And then I've listed here what the new materials item types are. Notice there's versions for holdable and then either no holds or local holds. So we've done that for books, DVDs, Blu-rays. We made children's equivalents for new DVDs and new Blu-rays. We've also made new codes for books on CD, music CDs, playaways. And then we were glad to see out of the discussion from the May 3rd in between database meeting, we were glad to know that at least a couple of you would really benefit from having a new video game item type. So we've added that to the list as well. So our next step for the standardized new materials item types. So starting next month, watch the listserv. We're going to be asking each library to complete a survey, asking your circulation and your hold rules, what you would prefer for your new materials, and then how long you consider items new in your library. We know some of you, everything is just coded as book and nothing's new. That's great. But we know there's also a good chunk of you that does consider materials new. So we want to make sure we gather your preferences before we move further in July. RSA staff will be adjusting workflows, the RSA CAT, Blue Cloud Analytics, where the reports are. We're going to be setting up the new materials item types in there for your library. So we'll be doing circulation and hold rules for those new material item types based off of what you mentioned your preferences were from that survey in June. In June, July, you'll hear from me or one of us in cataloging. I want to make sure each of you that are entering on order items, that you're cataloging them using the procedure we have. The main thing is I want to make sure each of you are using, and I think you are, but we need to double check before we begin this process. I want to make sure each on order library you're using either the on order home location or the on order item type. if not both. We'll need to make sure you're using at least one of those so that we can safely exclude these items from being considered for editing once the items age past 1 year of being cataloged. We know sometimes items stay on order for longer than that. So we really don't want to goof up your on orders. So we just want to make sure that, like I mentioned, for each of you that do on orders, there's about a dozen of you, that it's really clear how the on order items are cataloged so that we can make sure we safely exclude them. We just want to make sure, for example, you don't put on order just in the call number because that won't help us. So we'll revisit this here in the next couple months just to make sure before we really get underway that your on orders, we know not to touch those. After that, at the August 4th RSA board and user group meetings, we'll get approval to actually start editing existing new materials to the new item types that were approved last month. So to these here in this list. We know some libraries, you may want to edit them yourselves using, for example, item group editor or global item modification. If you want to do that, that's okay. We'll provide reports for you if you want to take care of it on your end, but we also are prepared to take care of those edits from our end for those libraries that don't have the staff, the time, the capability, the energy to do the edits in-house. So those are our immediate next steps. I know there's additional steps that Kendall talked about during the May 10th RSA board and user group meetings, but I thought I'd just give you the plan through the rest of this summer since that's the foreseeable future. Does anybody have any questions about what the immediate next steps are for those? The next piece of this new item types project is trying to get some standardization regarding how long an item is considered new. So it was approved at the May 10th RSA board and user group meetings that the maximum length of time an item can be considered new. If you're a school library, it's at the end of the current school year. If you're public, academic, or special library, it's up to 1 year. We know some of you may want to, using Kendall's term, de-new, change your items from new to regular status. You may want to do that sooner than the 1 year maximum, and that's perfectly okay. We just want to make sure we have a measure in place where if those materials don't get edited, a year is the cutoff, so we can make sure nothing is hanging out in the system that's new for more than a year. So in the coming months, this will be late summer into the fall. Remember, we're doing the survey next month, but then in the coming months, we'll actually be working one-on-one with each of you to make sure we have the correct time limit for how long you consider your items new. We'll set up some reminder reports that come from Blue Cloud Analytics. They come to your email that list new items to help you stay on top of them when you no longer consider them new. And then we'll also offer, as we help each of you to batch edit any items in your collection where they're assigned new, but they're really no longer new. So that would be older than a year or older than what your preferred time limit is. And we're, like I said, we're ready to help with that, but we do recognize some of you may want to take care of that on your end with item group editor or global item modification. Okay, that brings us to the last piece of this new project, which is the old new item cleanup, which I had started to get to in the previous slide. So we currently have more than 16,000 items that are cataloged as new, that are at least 1 year old, if not older, and some of them were cataloged as far back as 2007 when we migrated to this database. These items, of course, cause holds trouble because they may be restricted to local or no holds. So if you're a patron and you place a hold on that item and it's assigned new book and that's local holds only, especially if it's the last or the only copy on the record, just think how long you would be waiting for that. You would probably give up. So it really is a patron services issue, not just a database maintenance issue. So after we finish the project that we talked about a couple slides ago, where we take your currently new items and we give them the new item types, after we do that, if you need help, we'll work with you to identify what these old new items are and offer to help you get them changed to their regular item types if you need help. We've heard from a couple members, they'd like to start editing their old new items now and not wait in the next couple months. So if you have the time to do this, you can submit an RSA report request. I'll show you where that's linked on the website. So if I go to rsanfp.org, and then notice there's online request forms toward the middle of the page, and there's report request forms. So you can submit one of these. You'll probably want to do a one-time request asking for your new items. Or if you've done Blue Cloud Analytics training yourself, you can run the report and get a list of those items cataloged that are older than 1 year. Let me take a look here. Yeah, that's a good point, Carla. Let me see. Carla in the chat says, if for anyone comfortable using item group editor, it's also possible to use the date created parameter coupled with relevant item types to get a report of materials in need of a change. Yeah, let me take a quick look at that. So if you have access to the item group editor here in the cataloging module, yeah, so notice certainly pick your library. I'm going to go ahead and pick Macomb since you suggested it. And then notice you can pick your item type from here. We'll just hypothetically, we'll pick book new, but of course you'd pick what you're using. And then notice there's this date created option right here. So you can do items cataloged, you know, before May 20th, 2021, if we want to go a year back. So keep this in mind as a good shortcut. I recognize not everybody has, as I affectionately call it, IGE, the item group editor, but it is an option if you have that built into your cataloger account. Okay, any other thoughts, questions, ideas about the new item type project? Okay. All right, so we've been thinking off and on for quite a while, and I know I talked about this at the January meeting. I was certainly in pondering mode during that January meeting, but we've hatched more of a plan to try and help get well, essentially, we're trying to get items into your patrons' hands faster. That's really what we're trying to do. And the first piece of this, we've decided what's old is new again. We've decided to open up the OCLC Connexion, i.e. the BibLoad, we call it, those workshops to basic onlines. We've heard from a few basic onlines where they really are interested in using it. They have the staff, the time. So we'd like to give this a shot. Initially, we did do it this way. Several years ago when we formed the cataloging department back in 2015, we decided to reconfigure the BibLoad workshops, OCLC workshops just to the full online members. But at this point, based off of the volume of incoming cataloging requests and then the desire from several basic onlines to start using this, we've decided to open it up. So this was approved during the May 10th RSA board meeting. It's going to take effect with the August BibLoad workshop. I don't have a specific date yet, but stay tuned because we will be scheduling workshops like Erin mentioned earlier. We're going to be scheduling workshops August through December, probably within the next month or so. So stay tuned because we'll put them on L2 and then also on the listserv. So we won't do this for June, but we'll start in August. Yeah, that's a good question, Courtney. Will those be multi-day training things? Yeah, good question. They're one-shot instruction sessions, but I should mention that you watch, is it 4 or 6? Let me double check here. You watch some OCLC video recordings beforehand. I've got my slides jumping here. Here it is. Okay. Let me take a quick look at the L2 event. I feel like it's either 4 or 6, but I just want to make sure I tell you the right thing. But there's several recorded OCLC sessions that I recommend you start watching soon after you register because they do take time. But the instruction session with me is just 2.5 hours. So it's not quite as intense as the basic workflows cataloging workshop. So if you find these on L2, notice I just did a search for BibLoad workshop. Here's the June one. Let's go down. Okay, so notice it lists registration requirements. Okay, there's 4 modules. All right, good. I needed to check because I had a feeling I was on the wrong track with 6. Notice they are over an hour long, so it's a good idea not to wait to do these until the day before the training. But like I said, the instruction session with RSA is 2.5 hours. Okay, is there anything else in the chat? Ooh, I'm quite jumpy here. Okay. We will get revised once this actually starts in August. I'm going to revise the core competencies for cataloging staff at RSA member libraries. I'll revise that document to reflect that the OCLC cataloging level has the requirements of either a full or a basic online. You've completed the basic workflows cataloging training. You have preferably at least 1 year of cataloging experience, but we can reconsider that on an individual staff member basis. You're subscribed to the listserv and then you try to attend these meetings, but if you can't make it, you either catch the recording or the notes that we put on the database page. So those will be the new requirements as we move into August and open this up. This slide we talked a little bit about already, but remember we looked at L2 just a minute ago and it has a long list of registration requirements. Make sure you review those carefully. They're also in the listserv post where we send the invitation for the workshop. That way you know what you're getting yourself into, for lack of a better term. And as I mentioned, start working on those video requirements as soon as you can after you register. That way you can space them out. I know everybody has so much to do already, and it's just one more thing. So try to start fitting those in sooner rather than later. And we have experienced, I know we've mentioned this in the listserv post, you might have read this, but we have had a lot of last minute cancellations for this workshop. And I'm sure it has to do with not having enough time to do the OCLC videos. I do appreciate the cancellations because at least that means you're not coming ill prepared. But on the other hand, we need at least 3 staff from 2 different libraries. to register for these workshops. We're trying to maximize our time teaching it, both for you and for us. And we're also trying to get some collaboration going between members by having more than one of you in a class. So if there's less than 3 of you at the time of the workshop, I will have to go ahead and cancel it, just because, like I said, we're trying not to teach it for onesie twosies and really make sure this is a group experience that makes the best use of everybody's time. So it's an unfortunate aspect of these workshops, but the past 2 workshops, I've taught it for only one person. So we recognize we need to do differently when it comes to how many are registered. Does anyone have any questions about expanding these to basics? We do have the membership list out on our website. So if you're unsure what level you are, let me go back to rsanfp.org. And then let's see if where I can remember if it's from. So RSA membership here on the left. And then notice it's right here in the body of the page. And then for each library entry, it tells you basic or full online. It's safe to assume you're one or the other. We only have a couple union list libraries left. The union list libraries catalog in workflows, but they don't use it for checkouts or holds. I know none of you in this meeting are union lists, so it's safe to assume starting in August, if you're not already eligible, you will be eligible to start doing OCLC should you have the time and interest to do so. Okay, any questions about that? Okay, the second part of our approach for trying to get items into patrons' hands faster. This is also what's old is new again, but there's a new part to this. We've decided to start having you essentially create brief records when you can't find the match. This is what you may remember we were doing pre-2015 before the cataloging department. The difference is this time, though, when we're ready, we're going to be requesting the item from you. So rather than having you tell us what the item is, we're going to be requesting it from you when we're ready. So it won't sit in a backlog waiting to be cataloged and not being accessible to the patron. I'll go over steps in more depth here in a couple slides. But the first thing, the RSA board approved this change in operations at their May 10th meeting. There's really 3 goals. I've mentioned making it faster to get the item into the patron's hands more quickly, rather than waiting for us to provide the bibliographic record. We're trying to make it easier too, because we know cataloging requests take a lot of time. Especially if you submit the digital scans or the photos, but also sending the item takes time. So we're trying to make this less work for you up front than submitting the cataloging request. And then the third thing we're trying to do, and I know this has been mentioned a few times off and on over the past year or so, especially when we moved to the new help desk, there was interest in an ability to search. When you have an item that has no record, either in workflows or OCLC, if you use OCLC, there was an interest in seeing if you could search the help desk for existing tickets to see if somebody had already submitted a request for that item, so you wouldn't have to do it. Well, this new system, yeah, Courtney, yes, right. This new system is going to avoid, let's say 3 or 4 of you submitting a cataloging request for the exact same item. We'll only request the item from one of you when we're ready to catalog it with an OCLC record. So we're going to, this fits with the theme of less work, but I wanted to point out avoiding duplication of effort, because again, I know this has been a thread that has been brought up over the past year or so. So we're trying to avoid unnecessary work on your end. This is going to start Friday, July 1st. At that point, the cataloging request forms are going to be taken down because remember, we're going to have you, if you can't find the match in workflows or OCLC, if you use OCLC, we're going to have you start to put in a brief record. Okay, so here's how it'll work. Here's the steps. Hopefully these steps make sense, but I'm using you, our group here, as a sounding board for this because we're still trying to make sure we have our steps finalized before we actually roll this out in July. We do recognize, though, like anything, we may need to make tweaks once we get started, but we'll try to get the process as good as we can when we start on July 1st. Okay, so the first step, just like you've always done, keep searching workflows for each item you need to catalog. So search workflows first. Please don't put everything on a brief record that you catalog. We do have that issue. So when you search workflows, see if there's a match. And if you find a match, whether it's brief or OCLC, attach your item to it. Now, if you use OCLC Connexion and what's in workflows is a brief record, see if you can go out to OCLC and get the full record, just like you're doing. But if you can't find a matching record in workflows, as I mentioned, search OCLC Connexion if your library uses it. See if there's a record there. Regardless of the encoding level, go ahead and attach your 949 tag with your call number and item information and bring it into workflows. If it's a level 3 record, there'll be reports run on our end of level 3 records that have the really crummy description. So we will be keeping an eye on those from our end. But I admit the backlog is our first priority, and we'll talk about that here in a couple minutes. Just for a refresher of what the level 3 record looks like. Okay, so this is an example of a level 3 record. Notice it has encoding level 3 in the upper left corner. It essentially looks like a brief record. It has author, title, maybe a little bit of publication information, but it doesn't have any subject headings, summaries. Correct, Bobby. Yes, level 3 record, okay to import. Level M or 8. Yes, go ahead and import those as well. Yeah, essentially, if there's an OCLC record that has enough description that you can make sure it verifies what you have in your hand, go ahead and use the record. If you're in doubt, put it on a brief record and it will be revisited later. And we will determine which OCLC record it should use. But this one, even though there's not much here, you could still confirm it based on the ISBN and then author, title, and the publication. So you really could make a match on this. I just know it's not ideal, but it can be fleshed out later as time allows, rather than having you send it to us and wait for us to upgrade it before you can get it out to the patron. Okay, any questions about the level 3 records or the level 8 or M's? But basically, if there's something out in OCLC, like I mentioned, and it seems to match, go ahead and use it. Yes, you can attach to a brief record. Yeah, since Pekin uses OCLC Connexion, I'd like to see you, and for any of you that do OCLC Connexion, I'd like to see you if there's a brief record in workflows. See if you can, as an OCLC library, go out and find the full record for it. But if you can't, go ahead and attach to the brief record. If you don't use OCLC Connexion at all, just attach to the brief record. Again, try to confirm it matches based on title, author, UPC, ISBN. You do check first for a record in OCLC. Good. So keep doing that just to make sure that if it is a brief record, that if there's a match out there in OCLC as an OCLC connection library, you could bring it in to replace. Yeah, of course, if it doesn't replace, please contact the help desk and we'll help you make sure it replaces. Yeah. Okay, any other questions about the process? At least at this point, we have some more steps to do. Okay, so step 3, I apologize, there's so much information on this slide. I was trying to get it all to fit rather than across multiple slides. I know this is probably the slide you're never supposed to make in PowerPoint, but we'll go through this since it's pretty dense. If you can't find that matching record in workflows or OCLC, if your library uses OCLC Connection, as we've been talking about, you're going to create that brief record so that your item can start checking out right away. Effective July 1st, all of the tech and the individual cataloger accounts, not everybody is using an individual cataloger account yet. So some of you are still using tech, and that's okay. But I know the majority of you in this meeting have an individual cataloger account. So those will include the add title access in your cataloging module starting July 1st. So you'll go to cataloging, the titles group on the left, and then there's add title. We're going to be making some changes to this template that shows up by default to give you a bit more information you can enter. And then we know too that the corporate and the conference authors, those are used very rarely, if any. Let's see, do the brief records need to be in all caps? Yes, good question, Gray. So the brief records will be entered in all caps. The title and the author will. Yeah. So the fields we're going to have on the template, we'll still keep ISBN in the O2O. We'll keep, I don't think ISSN is on there. Yeah, okay, we're going to add the 022 for the standard serial number. We'll add the 024 for the universal product code, the UPC. I know this is on a lot of non-print items. We'll keep author in the 100, and this will be in caps when you type it in. We'll keep the title, of course, that'll be in all caps when you type it in. We're going to add a 500 field, a general note. This field will be optional, but we thought you might want it to put a little bit information in that you think the patron should know. So it might be if you have a kit, you might want to put it includes a dragon hand puppet, includes a dragon book. You may want to put its large print in this field. You may want to put it's unabridged or abridged for an audiobook. And then for a movie, you may want to put its movie rating. A patron may want to know that. There's probably other information you could put in this generic notes field, but those are just some examples of what you could put in there. We're trying to give you a little bit more that you can put in because we recognize this is going to be on a brief record for some time until we can get to it and put it on an OCLC record. The other field that we'll put on this screen for the brief record template, we're going to add, it's a local note field, and we're going to give it the mark tag number 592. This field will be required when you make the brief record. We'll put some placeholder text in the 592, much like how the title has required field. We'll put some text in there so you remember to fill it out. But the purpose of this field, you're going to type as the cataloger your preferred email address in this field. We are going to suppress this field in the RSA cat, so nobody is going to be contacting you, seeing it in the RSA cat. But we'd like to have you put your email address in because when we're ready to contact you to send the item, we need to know how to get in touch with you rather than just blindly sending an email to the RSA Gmail account and hoping that the cataloger gets it. We do know that sometimes brief records are created. If you get a library's item in and it's not an RSA library, so maybe it's a World Share Interlibrary Loan Request. It's from Find More Illinois, if you participate in that. I know we still do Share Illinois with Prairie Cat, or you might just have one of those ALA old school faxed interlibrary loan requests. So if you happen to get an item from a non-RSA library for interlibrary loans that you want to put in the system so that you can check it out to your patron and keep track of who has it. If you're putting in the brief record for that purpose, you'll just type ILL, but you don't need to put the quotes. You'll just type ILL in that 592 field. Since it's a required field, we need you to put something in that field, and we don't need your email address since you're putting it in as an ILL, if that makes sense. Any questions at this part of the process? Let me
Bobby
see.
said currently when I add an ILL item, I start the title with ILL to denote the reason it's brief. Should we continue to do that?
Sure. Yeah, we think that would be a good idea. It certainly doesn't hurt. I'll have to give that some thought about possibly putting that as part of the title field. I do like that idea. But if you're doing that, go ahead and continue because that's really a clear indicator. It's ILL. Let's see.
Courtney has a question. This is all for an ad done via add title rather than add a brief title.
Right. I didn't go into it on this slide. There's a separate procedure how to create a brief record that we won't get in the weeds in now. But it's important to put in the brief record using this add title because it allows you on the control tab, it allows you to enter what's called the record's title control number. This is an important piece of information if the item has an ISBN, a UPC, or an ISSN, because if you enter that title control number correctly, if the OCLC record comes along that matches it, whether OCLC loads it or an OCLC connection library, the brief record should replace if it has that control number. Unfortunately, if you put them in the circulation module in the items group, the add brief title, there's no way to change that control number in here. So it will definitely be stuck as a brief record if we put it in here. Does that make sense, Courtney? Yeah. Maybe stick with the brief for the Prairie Cat items, but add title for stuff that lives locally. It's the same template, unfortunately, between the two wizards. So when we build in the ISSN, the UPC, we take out corporate conference author, we add in the 500, and we add in the 592. Those fields are going to show up on this screen. It's controlled by the same template. But for the Prairie Cat and the other non-RSA ILL items, you can continue to use the add brief title here, since you don't need to edit the control number. But I wanted to be sure and mention that you're going to see the same fields on both screens. I asked Kendall, can we have just this stay as is on this screen and the other one gets fleshed out more? And at this point, we don't think it's possible, but I may ask again. We'll see. Let's see.
Galesburg prefaces ILL titles with asterisk, asterisk. Will this be a problem?
Let me think about that. It shouldn't be. I can't think of a reason other than it just gives a good, clear indicator that it's not a permanent item for your collection. It's an ILL item. I can't think of a reason where that would be harmful. Yeah, let me make notes about a couple of these. So the ILL and the asterisk prefixes. Yeah, okay. I'll give that some more thought, but at this point, I don't think that should cause a problem. Yeah, okay, good questions. Need some more thought on that, but at this point, I can't think of a reason why it wouldn't be a good idea.
Carla says, do we have the ability to shadow item and call number if using add brief title? I've always used add title to have the shadowing option for interlibrary loan items.
I know on the screen, add brief title, you cannot. I'm wondering if it's in the properties. I don't want to save that. So if I'm logged in as super, if I
She said,
right
sure, through the
click,
properties.
okay, good. So Courtney thinks this is the case. Okay, so if I'm logged in as super, not my regular cataloger, and I go to properties, it looks
Yep.
like here, yeah, the defaults, you can shadow it, but you can't on the entry screen itself. What's on this tab? We'd want to leave all that alone. Yeah, Courtney says she does this all the time. The Trek is remembering to shut that back off. Well, if the only time you use, well, I suppose you could use this for an on the fly. So if a patron comes up to check out an item, you might enter it real quick as an add brief title from the checkout wizard up here. That's the same wizard there. So yeah, you probably would not want that shadowed if you're putting in something on the fly, just so it can check out until you can get it fully cataloged. But if you're just using this add brief title for non-RSA interlibrary loans like Prairie Cat, you could leave the shadow setting enabled. Because you really don't need those ILLs to be visible in the online catalog. Yeah. Okay. Did that answer the question? If not, please ask again. Yeah, the best rule of thumb is if you're putting in one of these brief records when you can't find the existing match in workflows or OCLC, if you do OCLC, the rule of thumb is to come to cataloging and always put it in the add title. Yeah, there'll be a cheat sheet too that has the specific instructions that we'll share as we get closer to the July 1st implementation. Yeah, okay. Okay, so effective July 1st, this is where the backlog ties in. We're going to start from the cataloging teams and working through the backlog of existing requests. So all of those things that you've submitted, they were not a waste, I promise. And the Cataloging Maintenance Center is going to be helping us with the ones that were submitted for level 8 and M records. So we're working through what we already have before we start asking you to send us items to catalog them on OCLC records to replace your brief records. So we're not going to start asking you for items until we have finished what we already have, if that makes sense. This is going to take time because a lot of the requests in the backlog, well, first, there's a lot of them from as far back as almost 4 years. And they're also complex. They need original cataloging, and that takes time to do. I'm hopeful that a lot of those in the backlog, they may have since got an OCLC record, but we still need to look at each cataloging request and make sure it's taken care of before we move to the next one. So bear with us as we work through what you've already submitted, but we really see this as an important step in the process rather than continuing to take on more. Once that backlog's finished, then we'll be running reports of brief items, and we'll be asking you to send those items to us so that we can do OCLC cataloging. But we're only asking you to send the item when we're ready. That way, again, it's not stuck with us waiting to be entered and the patron can't have it. Remember, the beauty of the brief record is you put it in and you can start checking it out right away to the patron rather than waiting for us. Okay, so when we contact you to send the item, when we're ready, we're going to use the email address that you entered in the 592 field. We know there's a good chance staff will come and go, and the email address might not be accurate, but we'll call you if we're unsure and the email doesn't work. You'll still have the option to send us not just the item, but if you want to do the digital photos, the storage website, paper photocopies, we'll still let you pick your preferred submission method. But we're only going to request enough items at a time so that the RSA cataloger can get it turned around and back to you within 7 to 14 business days. So again, we're going to be taking this on in more manageable chunks rather than having everything sent to us from the get-go. Okay. Since it's going to you, is there a specific way we need to check those out, like an account for just those items? I was thinking about some kind of internal account. I don't have the specifics fully ironed out, so it's a good question. But I was thinking some kind of account that we could either set up for you or each library would set up where you would check it out to that account if you send it to us for cataloging. Kind of like an RSA cataloging account. You check it out to an RSA cataloger,
Erica?
maybe. Yeah.
All of the catalogers have, all of the RSA catalogers have D1500 numbers, so we can check them out once we get them.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. I need to give this some more thought, but we would put a hold, if you're sending the item, we put a hold on it. And then when the item comes in, I see what you're saying, Rhonda. That's a good point that we can check it out to the RSA cataloger who's working on it. They each have an account. Yeah, let me make a note. We can flesh that out some more.
Because that way the library wouldn't have to do anything special with it. They would just send it through delivery like they do everything else. They just might have to put something different on the label.
And that's currently the process I use for items on wrong records. That's what
Okay.
Ron described.
If we can try to keep it somewhat similar to what we're doing right now, even better. Yeah, these are good questions. There probably will be. This is something else that Kendall and I started to talk about, but we don't have fully fleshed out at this point. But if you want to send the digital scans or the cloud storage site, there'll be a simplified cataloging link for a form that will ask you to use to upload those, but the link isn't going to be accessible you know, any time to use. It's just going to be given to you when we're ready for you to submit it if you want to send it digitally versus us doing a hold and sending it that way. Yeah. Let's see. if I make the scans of an item when I create the brief record, can I just send the scans when you request the item and continue to circulate the item? Sure, if that makes sense for your internal workflow. If that's the step, you know, when you're getting the item, you can't find the record in workflows or OCLC. At that point, if you just want to make the scans and save them so that they're ready to go when we ask you to send us the item, you can certainly do that. And then you won't have to pull the item from the shelf or wait for the patron to possibly return it. Yeah. Okay, can you think of anything else at this point? This is the last step of the process on the screen. Okay, so as I mentioned, after you've sent the item to us, we're going to catalog it on an OCLC record and replace the brief record, trying to keep it within 7 to 14 business days. Again, avoid things piling up on our end. When the item comes back to you, you don't need to recatalog it because remember, you've already cataloged it from when you put it on the brief record. All the checkout statistics, if you've done inventory with it, if it has any current holds, all of those will be attached when the item is on the OCLC record. And then you won't need to edit change me's anymore since you're putting in the brief records with your items, call number, item information. You won't need a change me placeholder anymore. So you won't have to keep track of those and make sure you've got them edited before we remove them. I think that's okay. Before I launch the poll, does anybody have any other questions? I know this is very new and this is very different. But I'm hoping, like I said, it's going to make it simpler, faster, avoid duplication for you. Okay, let's see if I can launch the poll. Okay. What do you think about the proposed new cataloging process? This is anonymous, so feel free to share your thoughts honestly. Okay. Okay, so we mostly think it's a good idea. I do understand the undecideds because we still need to flesh out some of these details, and I'm glad that you've asked several good questions because that can help us think further about the process as we move closer to July 1st. I'm sure there's other little wrinkles that need to be ironed out as well, but these have been good questions. Let me launch the results. Okay, we won't end up with multiple brief records for the same item, will we? There's a chance. That's why it's important to search workflows carefully to see what's there. And the other thing is if brief records are created incorrectly, not with the correct title control number, let's say a brief record's put in with title, author, ISBN, but we forget that the title control number needs to change. That brief record will be stuck in there, but there may be another brief record for the same item that was entered correctly. And that one does get replaced by the OCLC record. That is one of the downfalls of this system is we could end up potentially with more duplicates. But we're counting on you to report duplicates to us as you see them so that Erin, our trusty duplicate cleaner upper on our end, can try to get those consolidated as you come across them. So we're going to be asking you to help us keep an eye on those as you're searching the database. But yes, unfortunately, that's a downside of this system. Yeah, okay. All right, I shut the poll. Let me see here our agenda. Okay, we're almost there. Hang in there. Number 10, I wanted to tell you where we are with the new and upgrading member libraries. So let me get to that one. Okay. The Beardstown Guard Grade School, they have the workflows code starting with BB2. They're a branch of an existing RSA member, the high school. They received the Rails grant to join RSA, and they started cataloging this past January. They've made pretty good progress. They have a small crew of teachers and teachers assistants helping with the cataloging. So I know their plan is to try and go live this coming school year. So they may get there based off of how quickly they're cataloging at this point. Farmer City Public Library, they start with the workflows code FC. This is one of those union list members. Remember I mentioned a little bit ago that the union list members, they do cataloging in workflows, but they don't do checkouts or holds. They too received a grant from Rails to upgrade their RSA membership. They're currently cataloging. They're awaiting some collection batch edits. Right now, their items say that they're in offline stacks is the location. And I know there's some item type cleanup to reflect the different formats of materials they have. So they're waiting on us to help them with some collection batch edits as they get ready for their basic online membership level. Let's see, New Windsor Public Library. This one starts with workflows code NW. This is a new member. They too received the Rails grant to join RSA. And then there's 3 or 4 of them. They started cataloging last month, so they have gotten started with their project. I know they're hoping to go live sometime next year, so we will see how they progress along. Those are all the new and the upgrading ones that I know of at this point. I know there might be a couple more in the hopper that Kendall is working with, but at this point, these are the ones we're definitely on track with. All right. And then the next thing I wanted to mention, service anniversary. So sharing for us, not just our service anniversary since the last database meeting, but also seeing if you had a service anniversary between now and this past January, if you'd like to share in the chat. Erin joined us this past February, so I know she doesn't have a service anniversary yet, but she has a service anniversary joining us. And then I've been here 13 years in March. No anniversaries for anybody? Maybe next time, right? Okay. Okay, before I turn it back over to Jennifer, and Jennifer, chime in during this discussion too, because I know as chair, you have an important voice in this discussion. But I wanted to launch a poll to see how people are feeling about possibly offering an in-person attendance option for this meeting for in September. So let me launch the poll here. And if anyone has any comments or thoughts they'd like to share about this in the chat, feel free. And remember, if you prefer to ask anonymously or say something anonymously, Erin will read it aloud, but not your name. Okay, so would you attend a database committee meeting in person hosted by an RSA member library? The thing about the Rails East Peoria Service Center, remember we moved last late June, early July. The meeting room only holds about 12 people at the most, and you'd be kind of cozy with 12 people in there. So we can't really have meetings anymore at our service center like we used to when we were in the former building. So we need to go to a member library, much like how Kendall, for the users group in the board meetings, he tries to go to member libraries for at least 2 of the meetings each year. Okay, let me end the poll.
We had one undecided due to travel distance. This meeting content is good, but worth a whole day of travel to and from. And Courtney
Yeah.
seconds Bobby. So
Mhm. And we know gas prices aren't getting any lower too. Probably it'll be $5 this summer. Hopefully they won't stay that way forever. But we do know gas prices are certainly a concern too. So, okay, this is helpful information. Thank you for sharing this. We'll give it some more thought, but that's good to know that the majority would prefer to continue this way. Yeah, that's a good point. Gray
Gray
says
says,
Zoom's handy. Yeah, oh, sorry, Aaron, I'm doing your job.
that's
Go ahead.
okay. Oh, Zoom is handy, especially if you have more than one staff attending, and it creates minimal interruption to the day.
Yeah, that's true, because then you just start the meeting and you're good to go, and then you end the meeting and then you're good to go with with what you were doing. So yeah, okay. Thank you for the feedback, everyone. I just wanted to ask, because I know, like I said, we're trying to get users group, see if there's any interest in the users group meeting in person. So I wanted to check about this group, but okay, that's good to know. At this point, we'll continue to say that September's to be determined. So I will, before I have Jennifer conclude the meeting, does anybody have any final questions about anything that we talked about? Keep an eye on the listserv, because remember, with the OCLC holding reset, and then as we move ahead with this new cataloging process, there'll be more information on there. Oh, you're welcome, Lori. Lori says, thank you for everything you do for us. You're welcome, Lori. You're welcome, Gray. We're trying to make things better for you. So I really appreciate everybody being open to these changes, and being willing to give them a try, and knowing that we may need to tweak things depending on how it goes, but we won't know if we don't try. So thank you for being really open-minded about this and being willing to do it. I know change is not something that usually people look forward to doing, but again, we're trying to think about how to improve this for you, and more importantly, your patrons. Yeah, okay, I will give Jennifer the meeting to wrap up.
All right. There are no in-between meetings scheduled yet, but they could pop up. So keep an eye on the listserv in case there's any of those. But the next full meeting is scheduled for Wednesday, September 21st at 1 o'clock. The Zoom registration is already available, possibly an in-person option. That seems like far away. We'll all survive summer reading and see how we feel after all that. Yeah. I think that's it. Thanks everyone for joining us on your Friday morning. And yeah, lots of good information today. This is always very helpful for me.
Do let us know if you have any questions. It's a lot to digest. So please do get in touch if you're thinking about this, maybe just even in the back of your mind, and you think, well, what about this scenario? Or what would I do if? So just reach out if there's something you think of. Like I said, this is by no means fully fleshed out, so we're still trying to get through some of the finer details. Yeah. Okay, well, with that, I think I'll stop the recording, echoing Jennifer's thank you to everyone for joining us. Have a great summer. Don't let summer reading get you too badly. Okay, well, we'll see you in September. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.